morning.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a live show of the Saturday Morning D&D show here, the last weekend of February 2021. My name is Jordan, with a silent PH in the middle, and I'm joined always by my wonderful co-host, Sir Lucian, over at Sir Lucian Gaming. Say hello, sir. How's it going?
Hello. I've got 2 thumbs and I'm here.
Oh, so fantastic. Yeah. It's weird when you're at somewhere and they're like, who's got 3 thumbs and is here? And you're like, what? And then, you know, the monster
I envy the 3-thumb penguin, though. I mean, 3 thumbs, could you imagine what you could get done?
No, because I don't really know what he would do with 3 thumbs. But there you go. Welcome. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. There is things happening in the D&D world, big things that are probably going to like change a lot of stuff. So, yeah, welcome. Steve Lee, thank you. Welcome. We got lots of really awesome people in chat. Always excited to have you. And if you are listening on the podcast, that is awesome and completely fine. But if you do want to catch us live, we're live on Twitch and YouTube Saturday mornings at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 Eastern. And we just chat for an hour, and it's a lot of fun. And you can interact with us in chat and ask questions. And if we see it and think it's cool, we'll talk about it. But Van Richten, Lucian.
Wow, you're just gonna go right for the big announcement?
Yeah, we gotta start big, and then people can stop listening after that. So, we kind of heard rumors that they were gonna make older campaign settings and bring them back. I was for sure like it's gonna be Dragonlance, because Dragonlance has just been in the news, and we might still get a Dragonlance book. I would put money on it if I was a betting man, but I am not. But we have a Ravenloft campaign setting for 5th edition, and it's called Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft. It's going to come out May 18th.
May 18th.
And so, what do you know about Ravenloft? Have you played a Ravenloft game? Have you played Curse of Strahd?
I have not. I've heard lots and lots about it. We have talked about the whole setting, and you've read through the book, and we've had friends that have played through it, so I've caught a few things here or there, people talking about it. But I know it's just basically like D&D had to have a vampire-type setting, because back in the day, the only game that came close, I think, in popularity to really taken D&D on was Vampire the Masquerade. There was a huge communities of live play, role play action on Vampire the Masquerade, and games being played, and people getting together and costuming it up and playing. I think that game had a gigantic community, chance to really kind of take D&D on back in the day. So I knew they would have something. And to me, that's what Ravenloft really is. It's like, hey guys, we also have our vampire setting too.
Yeah.
And I think they turned it, Barovia is kind of cool, and it's interesting, but I've only done it from the periphery. I know about it. I've heard about it. I've talked about it. I've talked with players who's got to play it. People have ran it. But me, myself, I have not dived in.
Yeah.
It was not a genre that I was into as much. I think I like the fantasy more. Not that I wouldn't try it out at some point, but
well, and it's like fantasy adjacent, I guess,
Yeah.
Like I think that's kind of fun, but no, I think Vampire the Masquerade really speaks to just the popularity of this gothic horror setting. Not specifically, hello dog, not specifically with just Vampire the Masquerade or vampires in general, but like when Ravenloft came out, they were playing it, and then like the next Halloween, people love Halloween and things like that. I love Halloween, where it's like, let's play that spooky one again. And so it became known as Ravenloft, because the people that would play this like Strahd game were like, are we going to play that like Ravenloft game again? And so it was just kind of like, well, we could expand upon this, and Ravenloft was so popular, the original ISEX module, that it spawned a sequel. And then I think it was 3 or 4 years after that, they made the whole campaign setting. So, like, you could play in this world. And back in the day, campaign settings really were just here's a different way to play. And then I think as TSR moved on, there was a big push to have them all be intertwined and things like that. And that's where the lore gets kind of weird, because, like, by 4th edition, they're like, Barovia's in the Shadowfell and all this other stuff, when really it was like, no, it's just a weird, mysterious place that you don't know of. But I kind of like how they expanded upon it, and specifically, Ravenloft is the name of the campaign setting, which is also the name of the castle where Strahd the Vampire lives in Barovia. But Barovia is known as a domain of dread, and it's this isolated demi-plane pocket, but next to it are other domains of dread, and like this one is run by a lich, and they all have these weird, evil, overarching characters, like Strahd the Vampire, but it'll be like a Frankenstein monster, or a hag, or a lich, or an undead this, or something like that. So if you're into this kind of stuff, this is going to be a cool book, because the Domains of Dread had a whole bunch of really cool villains, really cool mechanics that changed D&D, because they knew if you just went into Barovia with a paladin's detect evil, you're going to walk into town and be like, you're good, you're bad, you're bad. And so I liked that they took a lot of those mechanics and flipped them upside down. So now all of a sudden the paladin's like, but this used to work in Forgotten Realms. They're like, doesn't work here, buddy. Or it's feeding you misinformation or something. In the original guide or campaign setting, there's a whole bunch of like, here's how cleric spells work. Some of them don't. And I liked that. So I was, and I haven't talked about this with you, but I think the new direction for 5th edition is going to be like, here is a campaign setting with a whole bunch of alternate rules to allow you to play D&D again and have it feel refreshing. Because it's like, oh, all of a sudden, as a player and a DM, like, these spells don't work, and I can't do this, and I can't astral project, and there's no plane of whatever. I can't get out of here. And so you have like different objectives as a game master and a role player. So gonna be really cool. One of the things that I thought was the best is that they're going to have a framework so you can build your own domain of dread.
Your own domain of dread. Yeah. There you go. Yeah, rules to create your own, which I think was really smart.
So I like that because, and they're adding new ones, because before there was like 12 or 13, but I think they said there's going to be 30. And there's also going to be ways for you to create your own. And that's the best part. Like, if you're like, I love this Ravenloft thing, but I wish I had the tools to make my own thing. And I don't know, we need more of that. Like here's Planescape, but here are the rules to build your own plane of existence, or here's your rules to build your own deity and things like that.
So
really focus on the creative aspect for Dungeon Masters. I would like that.
Yeah, so like a setting book, subclass book, how to create your own setting that's similar, Domains of Dread, another domain. I thought I also saw something there like dark gifts, maybe a
so curses
set of rules
stuff,
for dark gifts and stuff. So some other
something
stuff
that has a benefit, but also like you're super strong, but you have to drink the blood of people. You're like, what?
So what I like about that is that it's more mechanics that if you want, or you felt like you were missing and you needed them for your game that you're playing, maybe this is what you've been waiting for. You've been waiting for this setting that would help you do that. 30 of them in there, which seems like a lot. So it seems like it could be a pretty big book. Lots, I'm sure. How much do you know about Van Richten? Because that one came out of, like, all the names I've heard up until now have been names I've heard in various times throughout the D&D lore, and throughout the 80s and 90s, and they've always popped up here or there. And we haven't still got a Vecna's. We need a Vecna's book. But cool. Jumping back, how much do you know about Van Richten? I hadn't heard that name before.
Yeah, so Van Richten is the Van Helsing of the Ravenloft series. Okay. He is Dr. Rudolph Van Richten, and he's a vampire hunter, and he's in Barovia trying to kill Strahd for whatever reasons. And he's in Curse of Strahd, I think, like spoilers. But he's an older guy, and he's just he's our Van Helsing. He is Doctor or Professor Van Helsing, the older, not the Hugh Jackman Van Helsing, but like the older one. But
he's kind of like the monster hunter kind of guy. We've written down books, or here's the methods that you should take these creatures of the night on kind of thing.
And he's a good guy, and he's there to assist the players and help them understand vampires. So that's who Van Richten is. Yeah, Dr. Rudolph Van Richten.
What do you think about the covers they've shown so far?
I don't like the alternate cover.
Oh, okay. But you always like the regular anyway.
The regular cover is fine. It didn't blow me away, but I was like, okay, it's got the same aesthetic feel. Let me bring up the other one. I need to just look at it so I understand what I don't like about it. Okay, let me find it.
I feel like it's a lot like Tasha's in a way. Tasha's alternate, which is up right there.
Yeah. And I can agree with that. I am downloading
do some
cover
downloading.
if it works. Oh, I have to do it this way. Okay, this is becoming annoying.
Oh, Cyberwolf is saying while you're grabbing that, you can already get some dark gifts in the dungeons in the Curse of Strahd. Spoilers if you guys aren't playing that. So he's interested to see how they might be incorporating the rules of it. Are they expanding, or is it just a cut and paste over? I bet they expand them to make them... Because the way it was described in the little blurb I saw was like, you remember how we used the piety system in our other book? Now we're going to do this with dark gifts. So it sounds like maybe it might be an expansion of some of that, hopefully.
Yeah. So I think it's Esmeralda that's on the cover of the alternate cover. And I'm trying to... I think it's the colors. I think it's the bright pinks.
The pinks and purples and the reds.
I'm fine with purple, but even the ravens are pink.
Yeah.
And I wonder if it was just kind of the idea... I don't know. Like but you're right. Like Strahd in the background, there's a werewolf, there's a zombie. Like all of that is really cool, and she's front and center, and that's awesome. But I think it's just the fact that it's very pink, and I wanted it to be more purple, dark tones.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they don't want it to just sit next to Curse of Strahd and look exactly like.
You want Bram Stoker.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be darkness, not bright. Not cheery.
So, I mean, very, very good art. I don't know. Like, but it's funny that you mentioned the Tasha's cover, because I loved that one. And I actually want to get that as a print and put it on my wall. Like, I just think that art is really cool with Grazit behind her and her big, like,
I like
cauldron.
that one, but I also like all the Hydro stuff. I wish at some point I could get all of Hydro on my wall. Him doing all those covers, as like you said, as prints would be super cool.
No, for sure. And it's surprising to me. I guess I want everything to be uniform. So when Hydro was making those covers, like, I wish they would have just stuck with that artist, and he did all of the alternate covers. So if you had the whole alternate cover collection, they all matched, but that is not what happened. So the only one I severely didn't like was the Saltmarsh one, but I don't know. I wasn't a big fan of this Van Richter's one.
I felt like I disagreed on the Saltmarsh one with you too, but yeah. Sometimes those books will look a little bit different though in their pictures versus when you get them in your hand, because of the material and the texture of some of those covers they're creating. And I've seen some of them pop more or not be as good. Like a lot of people, I didn't, my Mordecaians, I thought the screenshots that people took of it were just okay. But when I finally got it in my hand, I was like, oh, this is really cool, the alternate cover. I liked it more when I saw it in person versus when I saw it on the screen. So maybe that'll be one of them, just depending on what kind of material and what type of textured feel they're going to give to that one. Because sometimes they can change, sometimes it's just like most of them feel like gloss cardboard, right? And then, but the special ones always have something cool about holding that book.
Yeah.
So there's probably a whole industry in that of like different ways you can texture the front covers of books and stuff.
Oh, I'm sure. And like people buy based on a cover 9 times out of 10, so.
Yeah.
Shazama said that second edition actually had a whole bunch of series of Van Richten guides. It would be like Van Richten's Guide to Hags or to Monsters or something like that.
I must have missed that.
So he's a character and he's out there, yeah. I think White Wolf... I'm still doing a lot of research for Wednesday's video, which is going to be another Ravenloft video, but from what I was reading, TSR or Wizards of the Coast, one of them outsourced their Ravenloft world building to White Wolf, which made... Vampire the Masquerade, and they made a bunch of third-party supplements to help expand the lore of Barovia. So
White Wolf were they kind of owned that vampire world, and they made a really cool, compelling vampire world. And then with their further expansions of werewolf and some other things that went on to that, and it's still going strong.
You want to talk about lore, like if you think Forgotten Realms has lore, start getting into Vampire the Masquerade. Like there are clans and vampires and lineages and actual plays that became canon, and my son is screaming. It's just
because he loves it so much.
He's so excited about vampires.
Yeah. So so we get Candlekeep like in a week or a little
2 weeks,
more, maybe 2 weeks. And then we're going to get Van Richten, so we already know that one. which one's going to be your favorite at this point? I think I know, but
Oh, I think the Ravenloft one for sure. Like, Candlekeep will be fun. And speaking of that, we'll jump into Candlekeep info. So, Candlekeep comes out March 15th, 14th, 16th, something like that. And if you guys Dragon Plus. Do you read Dragon Plus, Lucian?
I love Dragon Plus. I read all of it today, and if of the versions of it, their issues of the issues that are out at the moment, I think this is one of the better ones for just getting information about what's coming up and the things that have been announced. Some of them aren't as good, but this one I felt was really good. So if you haven't read Dragon Plus previously, definitely at least go look at this issue, because I think they did a good job on this one.
Yeah, and they did. It's lots of... So they went through every author that wrote a specific adventure, and they're calling the adventures books, because I think you are in the library and you open a book and you get sucked in or something, and something like that happens. But so it goes through like everybody's kind of like idea behind it, and they look fun. Like, don't get me wrong, a lot of them deal with detectives and stuff, which kind of mysteries, Candlekeep Mysteries. So I think it's going to be like a fun twist on stuff, but it'll be good. I it's one of those where I don't know how I feel about that. Like, I like anthologies like this because you get a bunch of stuff that you wouldn't necessarily buy. Like, I'm like, oh, I like this author, and I like Amy Vorpal, and I like that, so I'll buy it. Or I'll buy their stuff. But this way, you're getting a bunch of stuff from authors that maybe you didn't know, and it's kind of fun to just read anthologies. I still haven't pre-ordered this, though. Like, I feel... I think I'm going to get it on D&D Beyond, or it's going to be shared with me by one of my many friends who buy everything on D&D Beyond. And I'll probably read it there, and then from there, decide if I want a hard copy or not. But I was like that with... Theros and stuff. I ended up picking those up later on super sale.
Yeah, I think there's some that I want day of. They just grab me, and I'm just like, I
and
want
it's fun
this
to,
one day of.
the book came out, and you go read it.
And there's other ones I might pick up a week or two later, or even maybe after a month, and they go on a small sale or something, and I might pick some of those up. If I don't think I'm going to be using them, too much. Like, I was thinking about that just before we started our show, which was... They've started out the year 2021 with 2 books that I'm not necessarily super interested in. I'm glad that they're coming out, because I know there's lots of people that are going to love them, but they don't necessarily fit into what I want in a book. So I'm still waiting for Lucian's book for 2021, the one that's going to grab me, because we nailed it last year. Like, at the very end of the year, getting Tasha's was awesome. Starting the year out with a Magic the Gathering setting was awesome for me. So that last year was really good for books of the ones that were out that I loved. This year started slow for me so far. So I'm hoping maybe the latter announcements are going to be things that are just going to, blow my mind. I'm hoping maybe a last minute Spelljammer at the end would just make my day. But,
yeah.
But for you, this seems like a pretty good year so far. These are a couple of books. I mean, I know you've done some mystery stuff. You like to mix your adventures up with combat stuff, but also not combat focused kind of stuff in your
like
campaigns.
I like that there's something to figure out, I think, in a lot of my games, and whether that's like who's really pulling the strings or literally a riddle, they're fun.
Yeah.
So,
and the idea that you now are about to have 30 different areas of dread to send your players to as they try to get back home. I know that's going to be big for you. I wonder, I wrote this on our Discord for those that should come and join us on, where we do a lot of talking about all this stuff that gets announced. One interesting thing for me is when the beginning of Saltmarsh, because Saltmarsh was a collection of Greyhawk adventures, but they definitely made sure in the beginning of that book to say this can be set right in Forgotten Realms. This can be set in your own campaign. Yeah. This can be set in Greyhawk if you want to stay in Greyhawk. They really opened up how... Don't feel like because these were Greyhawk adventures, you only can do this in a Greyhawk world. So I wonder, with these domains of dread, we're starting to get our first, except for Descent into Avernus. So we've got the plains of the Hells were starting to be explained to us a little bit. This is the next kind of big thing being described to us, what these domains are, how they fit in the world, how are they fit in Forgotten Realms. how do they, I can decide how they fit into my campaign, or where did they come from? Did these domains of dread come from other settings? Did some of them come from a Greyhawk? Did some of them come from other supplements that were part of Dark Sun or any of these other things? Did those things touch on that? I wonder if in this book, in the beginning, we learn a little bit about that. So I'm super interested in reading that first chapter about how they talk about fitting this book into running stuff, to see how they start to talk to us about that. Are we finally getting the planes jumping that we want, or can we get into Planescape, or do we finally get to Sigil, or do we finally get, can we go to these places? Is this the book that jumps us there?
I had part of my patron tier, the highest level tiers, we have like a monthly hangout. And so we had a hangout last night because it was the end of the month. And we were all speculating about, like, well, what's the other campaign setting going to be? And, with all the Magic the Gathering settings, with Ravenloft being a setting, and with Eberron, and, like, with them coming out with some more settings this year, I think the capstone is going to be Planescape. And it's going to be, like, I don't know, like the Lady of Pain's walkthrough of Sigil is going to be the name of the book. Yeah. And it's going to be either a big city book about Sigil and the worlds, the different planes that you can go to, but Sigil is the City of Doors. And if they make that the final, not the final book, but like the general hub where all doors lead to Sigil, you can go there. From there, you can go to Eberron. You can go to anywhere you want, and so it makes sense that that's probably going to be, which goes into what I think is going to be, Planescape will be the final book that we get. But it'll be or the campaign setting that we get, but I think it'll be one of those books that is going to be Sigil centric. So City of Doors. But yeah,
I think that would be great, because we've wanted to know how to get to other planes. I mean, I still want a Shadowfell centric or a Feywild. I mean, one that's combined with just an in-depth look at them really fleshing out Shadowfell and the Feywild, I think would be super cool. A book that I feel like we're sorely missing, because when they talk about it in little blurbs, it's so catching and it's so evocative that you just want more. And why don't we have a big 400-page book of just diving deep into those? I'm surprised, but I'll take what I can get. I know they have their big schedule, they have their stuff they're working on. It seems like we're not slowing down and wrapping things up, so I still don't see 6th edition on the horizon yet. I haven't seen a hint of that yet, so it feels like we might have another year or two of just maybe settings books and more rule editions ahead of us, and then maybe we finally get to maybe a wrap up and the promotion of the whole new 6th edition maybe. But it still feels like it's a few years off.
No, and I think like Theros is a good example where the future really feels to me like here's a campaign setting with some modified rules to make it feel unique. And Theros was like that with the piety system and things like that. And then Ravenloft is going to be like that with like, oh, it's harder and healing hurts you and da-da-da. And then, we're going to go further and further and further. And then Forgotten Realms will never get an official campaign setting. So.
Because could you imagine we had the books of the planes and we get a nice big 200-300 book of Mechanicus. And here's a bunch of adventure. Yeah. Here's some subclasses. Here's some extra rules you can play, because when you go to that plane, things are a tiny bit different. And then here's the rule for Limbo, or here's the rule for all these places. And you could have nice books, because right now a lot of that stuff's described in a few paragraphs and then moves on.
Yep.
And I understand that, because you let the DM really kind of mold that out. But many of us like to have really talented writers who've imagined this stuff and turn it into some canon for us to say, oh, good, just tell me about it so I can run it. I don't want to have to devise everything that happens in the domains of dread. Now I'm going to get a book that really gives me a big thing to pull from, 30 different domains I can use, and here's the rules to make your own. That's the perfect kind of thing to have when I want to dive into if I want to dive into domains of dread. But what if I want to dive into Feywild? Well, give me that big book of Feywild, and then give me some rules that I can make Feywild stuff, and now I'm super happy. Give me that Shadowfell, and give me that ways to make Shadowfell stuff. And
it's interesting because the Shadowfell and the Feywild were explored a lot in 4th edition, and that is really Well, that and Dragonborn, I guess, but that's kind of like the only thing that really came out of 4th edition that stuck with 5th. Because
sticks in.
People really liked the Raven Queen. They really liked the Shadowfell and the Feywild. And it's weird that we haven't really expanded upon that. But there's been a couple of Unearthed Arcana. There's been some like Raven Queen Unearthed Arcana and stuff if you wanted her as a patron. So I bet they've been playing around with it. It just hasn't been the right time to do it, you know?
Yeah, so. The Raven Queen's Book of something or Grimoire or something. Yeah. Oh, my God. Cool. Come on.
So, no, and I wanted to say one more thing about this before we move on. Specifically, Chris Perkins wrote one of the mysteries in Candlekeep Mysteries. And I liked his blurb about it because he's like, well, I wrote this as an example to the other writers. And I remember when he went on Twitter a long time ago and he's like, who are your favorite D&D writers? And people were tagged all over. And he used that list to reach out to people to find them and then worked with this team to create Candlekeep Mysteries. But he never intended to publish this adventure that he wrote. But then he was like, I guess we need a level 3 adventure. Kind of fits. And so he like put it in. But I don't know. It's just the funny thing that like Chris wrote a whole adventure just to be like, this is kind of what we're looking for, with no intention of really to publish it. But it was really funny.
There's a good list of them without spoiling too much in that Dragon Plus magazine issue for this month also. So you can see all the different, because Mark Holmes is in there. We saw Amy Vorpal was one of them that I saw. Kiana was in there. She wrote one.
Daniel Kwan, yeah.
Daniel Kwan wrote
from the
one.
community. Lots of cool people.
Yeah. So there was lots of names I recognized, but then there were new names I hadn't recognized at all, which was really cool too. So it'll be interesting. You can find somebody that you kind of agree with or like or subscribe to in their Twitter accounts or whatever, and then all of a sudden now they have a cool adventure in a D&D book. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah. Real quick, we haven't been playing Adventure League for a long time, and because of the virus, I don't really know a lot of people that have been playing Adventure League. But they're removing the PHB +1 rule. So for the longest time, if you wanted to play in Adventure League, you could use the Player's Handbook plus one other supplement, which really hindered you if you were a spellcaster or searching for specific feats that you couldn't get, or races or anything like that. And so they're changing that up, that you can now use Tasha's, Mordenkainen's, Xanathar's, Volo's, and the PHB, and the Sword Coast Adventurers Guide. Those are all legal. So
legal thing, and that makes sense because if you have to pick between Tasha's or Xanathar's, you're just stuck sometimes because there's so many cool subclasses in there.
Or
but
even
then you might want to use
package
a cool
and stuff.
Race, So
and Eberron, so they're all just lumped together now. So I bet you'll have we're gonna use the rules from Ravenloft, but you can play any character from that. So if you're interested in Adventure League, when the virus goes away, there will be a lot more options for you as a character. Or as
the thing I liked for me, my Aarakocra finally gets unbanned. If you play level 5 or up in that tier, Aarakocra is an approved race at this point. They were taking out the races that had flight at first level, and they didn't want them in the game, so they've been banned from the games for a while. So I'm glad, because I love my Aarakocra fighter cleric right now. He's just so good, so fun.
Super fun. And then so the other big news with Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast is Hasbro had a big meeting, a shareholder meeting thing where they announced their future of Hasbro. And remember when we were talking about what are they getting rid of Wizards of the Coast? What's happening? Well, we were dumb. Or I was dumb, I should say. Because Wizards of the Coast, their profits have done very well in the realm of COVID. So despite profits being down for a lot of other companies, they actually did a lot better, to the point now where Hasbro has promoted them to a separate operating division of Hasbro. So they're going to divide Hasbro into 3 is what I was seeing. Still one company, but Wizards of the Coast is in charge of not only Magic the Gathering and D&D, but licensing their intellectual property to other companies. And this was big because it's basically like a promotion for Wizards of the Coast to say, you're doing great, make more content. And so not only are they going to make more D&D stuff, they're going to work on their own, or they're going to work on new intellectual property that they will then use for board games and then license out for video games and all this other stuff. But the what I thought was really cool is they're like, we're going to make a D&D movie, which we have been known, like Chris Pine is attached to it and things like that. But a D&D TV show and a Magic the Gathering movie and a Clue TV show, which I'm very excited about.
Yes.
So lots of crazy stuff happening there. Like,
yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, I feel like it was Ted that did a deep dive into that. Like, he listened to every minute of the board meeting, and like he was really involved. You know, he's been really searching it out because we've always been wondering if somebody was going to come in and try to buy that out from them, thinking maybe, you know, it wasn't doing well, so this is a good time to come in and buy it. But no, if it's skyrocketing, I mean, the only juggernaut that's going to come in and buy something like that is probably Disney. But
yeah, we were all joking that Disney was going to buy Wizards of the Coast at some point.
So, and we saw the new logo that came out. So they had a new logo that they showed off, which I think it would be the logo that gets attached to the things that you just talked about, like the shows, the movies, maybe some new intellectual property that's coming out. And I think that's great. Imagine being in that company right now, and you're part of that creative team that's just been given the go-ahead to say, you know what, you guys did fantastic during a world pandemic. Keep it up. We're no more reins are on you. No more chains. No more. You guys go do your thing and really do it.
Yeah, because it's like you're doing a good job. Just keep doing that. So
yeah, do more.
Which I'm excited for more like D&D centric video games. You know, it'll be cool. Not just the Baldur's Gate 3s, but like they're doing that Dark Alliance. But like a lot of those characters,
see a Diablo
it would be
style,
really fun. Yeah,
an MMO would smash. You know, if they've created one of those, a Forgotten Realm MMO would be so good.
That would be really interesting, and that would be really popular, I think. And then we're not a Magic the Gathering podcast, obviously, but I thought this was interesting that they're doing Magic the Gathering is doing a bunch of crossovers, and specifically they've gotten properties of Lord of the Rings and Warhammer. And if I'm remembering correctly, they've done these crossovers already with like, what's the zombie show? Walking Dead. And you had like Wizards of the Coast, Magic the Gathering cards that were Walking Dead themed, but it was the same game. It's just you had zombies. So the Lord of the Rings really fascinated me because I was like, they don't just willy-nilly give that out usually. like the owners of the estate of Tolkien is like, but so.
Yeah, I couldn't even imagine a Warhammer D&D crossover event. Jeez, that's bringing two communities that are crazy passionate about their worlds, and since the 80s, the tabletop gamers with a large world behind them and 40K and Warhammer Fantasy, and then Dungeons and Dragons with all of their Greyhawks and Forgotten Realms and all of their books and all of the things they've spawned off. If those two things ever collided, my head would explode.
Yeah.
That'd be crazy.
So yeah, they're going to do tabletop and digital Magic and D&D. Going to make some new intellectual property, which we know that they've been doing that in I think, Texas. They got like a bunch of interesting people that were making things for BioWare
it felt like
or something.
That's where the studio was.
Yeah,
they put up the studio.
And the whole idea was like, we're going to make some new stuff. And then, it's the whole point is like licensing out their intellectual property to people that want to make cool things. And so, I don't know, it'd be really cool. I'm excited.
It is true. There is a MMO out there called Neverwinter Night, and it is...
No, it's just called Neverwinter,
technically,
and it's not the best.
But I mean maybe more on the line of World of Warcraft or Guild Wars 1 or 2. Well, probably 2 is a better example.
D&D Online
open world
was,
MMO.
Yeah, D&D Online was 3.5 rules, and I think that MMO is still kicking to some extent. But I had fun with it. I was a little dwarf wizard. I'd jump off a cliff and cast Featherfall and like gently glide down, and that's all I ever wanted to do in an MMO with that kind of, is cast fun spells like that. So.
Oh, I'm jealous. Cyberwolf's in Austin. Such a cool town.
Austin is.
Got some good gaming stores out there, Cyber. All right. Well,
and
that's
then
pretty cool.
last but not least, there's Spawn of Cyclops Con, which is the only reason I want to say this is so that Danimal can take a drink with our new
emoji.
DCC emoji.
Drink it up.
Which I'm really excited about that I made the other day. You can use that in the Discord or if you are a subscriber on...
Let's get some DCC news up in here.
But yeah, they're having their Spawn of Cyclops Con, which is just another virtual con. But the cool thing is they made a virtual dealer's hall.
Yep, I gotta get over that.
So you can walk around with your little avatar. It's all 2D. But the idea is that it's a big chat room, and when you get over to a dealer, you can see the chat of the people around you, and you can talk to other people and ask questions, and then buy something from the dealer. And when the fact that we haven't been able to do that in person for so long that's really cool. Like,
we'll take that. Like,
really,
we're to
I
the
love
point
that.
that we'll take that just so we can have.
Yes, I thought that was really, really awesome. So.
Because eventually you could do VR chat. I mean, if VR got enough exposure out there, I know a lot of my friends have bought their kind of VR sets. I still haven't got one. I've got it on my list, my Christmas list at some point. But that could be another cool route to go. That where you're just making up virtual, like if you recreated Gen Con's hall as a virtual 3D thing, and you walked up and there's other people there talking about this, and then
your wife can put dirty socks under your nose. You're like, it's like I'm actually
this
there.
Is the perfect
the smells,
thing.
all of it. So good.
The 2-week-old sweater from the gym. Yeah, and then you have everything you need. But the idea that you can localize, I've seen this done in a couple of other games too, where proximity is determinant on whose mic you can hear. So if you put like a radius and all of a sudden in a game where, I don't know, 50 yards apart, we can't hear each other. But the minute we get to 20 yards apart, we can start hearing each other's conversations. And that's kind of a cool idea, which would be perfectly implemented. Here's like what they've done. So that sounds cool. I'm going to go over there and check it out because it sounds like a really fun thing to take a look at. And, these game companies have got to advertise somehow. This is the only way they can get the word out that they've got new products, or we don't even, if we're subscribed to the people we like all the time, like Goodman Games and Wizards of the Coast, we understand the stuff they're doing. But what about those brand new game companies that have started in 2020, or they decide to start their brand new company in 2021? How are we going to hear about them? And these conventions, these type of gallery rooms or ways for us to go and see their stuff would be the only way you would stumble onto somebody you hadn't heard of before. So,
okay, yeah,
I'm definitely heading over after the show.
Yeah. So, Mr. The Lucian, should we do some College of Monsters?
I think so. I think
that
that's
sound
this
exciting?
time, right?
All right, let's boot up the random monster generator. I know
Boot
this
it
is
up.
so fun for you guys.
Plug it in, move some wires, get this thing going.
Yeah. This is the most ridiculous, silly thing I've ever made is this backdrop. Fax machine noises. It's so dumb. I think it's done. Let's generate a number. 222 is our number today.
222. That's an interesting number.
Yeah.
222.
So if you guys are new here, we're going to go through the
numbers.
monster manual, and I pick a random page, which in this case is 222. And today we've already done this one. This is Mind Flayers. Okay. Random.
Did we? We must. How did we land on 222 before?
I don't know. But I'm going to generate again 280.
But we love Mind Flayers.
I do love Mind Flayers.
280.
Sphinxes.
Ooh.
280 is Sphinx.
I did not expect that.
So let me look up a
280.
Sphinx. I don't think I've ever used a Sphinx.
No.
Now that I think about it. I failed my search.
And there's lots of different types, right? There's all kinds of weirded name types of those. Sphinxes? Sphinxi? Sphinx? I don't know what the plural is.
Yeah, you're overthinking it for sure.
Yeah. Egyptian lore. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Make that a little bigger. All right, there's our Androsphinx. So, Sphinxes. In Sacred Isolation, Sphinx guards secrets and treasures of the gods. They have wings. They are divine guardians. They have secrets and mighty spells, artifacts, magical gateways. The 9 deities sometimes grant a Sphinx the power to remove supplicants that fail their test, transporting them away and ensuring that they never encounter the Sphinx again. So like guardians, but we have a Genosphinx and a Androsphinx, and so today I think we'll just talk about sphinxes, but those are our two sphinxes.
Yeah, and for some reason those always remind me of Neverending Story, and he has to walk between the statues.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's what I always remember. That's like my iconic vision of those. But they're usually something that's like at the beginning of a dungeon or in a room, and the only way to get through is you're going to have to solve a riddle. They're constantly used as a way to deliver a riddle before you can move on. And if you don't, this is a super powerful creature, that you better solve 17. That riddle. You better solve that riddle because you're probably not taking this thing on in a fight. So that's pretty interesting. I feel like they've shown up in a few of the... Was it Tomb of Annihilation that maybe had one, but we solved the riddle, so we moved past it? Or maybe it was one of the other adventures had one. And I think we were able to solve the riddle and move on, so it wasn't too bad. But interestingly,
they're monstrosities, and I would think that they're constructs, because I always think of like the Sphinx, Egyptian Sphinx. But I guess you're right. Like they're physical creatures. They have blood and stuff.
So that's how most people use them, as a way to deliver riddles to a party, probably dungeon delving or temple delving or something. What are you thinking out of the box use, though? That's the easy way to do this. What's the out of the box way to use?
So how would we incorporate a Sphinx into a game? So what if the players have been gifted a baby Sphinx? And they know that in order to open the door to whatever magical thing they need, MacGuffin, Chekhov's MacGuffin, that they will need to help they have to keep this creature alive because it's tied magically to that gateway or door. And then through the whole adventure is actually finding the question to the answer they know. Like, they know the answer to the riddle, but the baby Sphinx doesn't know the question that it's supposed to ask yet. And so you're trying to find, like, how do you do that? And how do you go about it? And that's kind of the whole quest, is, like, maybe going into tombs and various underground passageways and things to find, or, like, the top of a mountain, to find those old relic things so that it can be inspired and get the question that it's supposed to ask to fulfill its destiny.
I like that. So
I don't know, is that kind of weird? That's
in my mind it's almost, you're taking it backwards, right? So you're saying you know the answer, your mission is to build the riddle.
Yeah. I guess now, so RPG DMCA just was like 42. He's like, Jordan, you're doing Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and you're right. I am. I apologize.
But it works. If you have to build the riddle and you know that the answer, you already know the answer, so you don't want it to be easy. You're giving the players the chance to do something they never get to do.
How many roads must a man walk down?
Yeah, you would build a lot of these different things. And maybe you can't just say them. Maybe they have to be something you have to do in the world, like you said. So, like, you can't just say, it exists in a mountaintop, but it's also under the mountain. Well, for you to have the power of that, you have to go to the top of the mountain where it was, and you have to go below the mountain where this thing is, and then our answer is this. It's like you have to experience the parts of the riddle for them to have power.
That's fun. Like, and you could explain that to your players as, like, the Sphinx that you're nurturing needs to have that aha moment. Like, it needs to, like, while you're raising it, you need to travel to the top of the mountain. It needs to understand that people age as the seasons change, so that fall means death, but you're reborn in spring, so that it understands those concepts. That would be a weird way to carry on a campaign, but I like that because I haven't experienced something like that before.
That's very different.
Where there's a mechanical way to have an aha moment for a creature that you're trying to, like, teach. I like that idea. It's kind of fun.
And just because Quintus mentioned Baby Yoda, what if you had a baby Sphinx and it was in a little globe thing that floated behind you? That is
actually Baby Yoda. I love, and everybody wants it because if they can get the Sphinx, then they can ultimately find this treasure That being, force sensitivity through its blood. But
definitely make it a floating egg carrier that it's in, for sure.
And it could be a sidekick. You could use those sidekick rules.
In fact,
and actually, as it gets bigger, it could do cool things for you. That'd be fun.
I have a baby Yoda. I must have moved him. He was right behind me. Such a good... so I like it.
I didn't show you this, Lucian, but for Valentine's Day, my wife got me a shirt that says the Dadalorian, and it's the font of the Mandalorian. Maybe I showed a picture on somewhere, but but my son has a little baby Yoda in his breast pocket of his shirt, nice. So we have matching shirts. It's really cool.
Yeah, I think he should buy the stroller that just looks like baby Yoda thing, and just be.
And while I'm at it, why don't I just permanently dye my son green? I don't understand, guys. Ear implants, it'll be great.
He'll love it. Make his eyes really big.
Yeah. Too funny. So that's a fun idea. I mean, do you have another one?
Wow, you knocked it out of the park. Well, yeah, that was
sorry.
I can't even think of something. That was so good. That was my mind's blank. It's only thinking about your out of the box version of it. Taking the riddle backwards. How would I go out of the box with a Sphinx? I feel like the only thing I want to do that's super cool is I want to bring that imagery in of that never-ending story, because that scene of the knight riding through and then getting blown up by laser eyes from the statues that are Sphinx-like.
Yeah.
And then Atreyu has to figure his way out because you can't just get through. There's something else that has to happen.
You have to be brave or something.
And it's courage. Yeah, it's like a test of courage in a way. I always thought that stuck with me for a very, very long time. I don't know how you put that into a role-playing game where you can just say my character is brave and they, but what's the true test of that? What's the true...
I think the true test is
a
Dom Jabor, where you put your hand in the thing and it hurts.
Yes. Let's go to Flash Gordon right away.
Well, that's Dune, but okay. Anyway,
I was thinking of the one where they put it in the log. It was Flash and I forget the guy in green's name. They were putting their hands in the log, and then whoever lost was how you lost that game. But I like your Dune reference too. That's another.
I don't know. It could. I guess we're focused on riddles, but it could be just
how do we get off riddles?
A magical guardian that,
what if it's like doddering and it's forgetful and it's a comedic character and it's a patron maybe of the group and it has them do things, but play them as a comedic relief kind of character, like the absent-minded professor kind of character, and they interact with them because he sends them on all kinds of crazy stuff and then forgets why he sent them there, or the thing you're going to get sounds super important, but then it's just like an ingredient he wanted to put in his breakfast. But then other times he sends you to go get something that doesn't sound important at all, and you find out that it stops the Great War from happening or whatever, and you never know with this guy. You just never can quite guess. So as a fun character for a GM to flesh out in this weird, quirky way, in a comedic Act Inc. style campaign, I could see that'd be cool. He'd have maybe he's balding and he's got glasses and he's just, just a forgetful professor. I think that could be a fun, but he's a Sphinx, so that's kind of a cool 17th level.
Yeah, Nathan says, the Sphinx has amnesia and can't remember the riddle you're supposed to answer.
There you go. Now you're in trouble. But even if you get away from the riddles and stuff, what is a Sphinx life like? What do they do? What do they, besides just being guardians of rooms and stuff? What's a Sphinx convention look like? Do they all get together and do they share riddles, or do they not? They leave that work. They leave that at the office. They let their hair down and they go and do other stuff. Could you play on something like that where make it more of like an office episode where it's very mundane and very, very clinical, very corporate in some way. I might try to go that route to bring them out, because there's I think when you players have such an idea of what they're supposed to be, this gives you a chance to play on they're not that at all. Like you can really go, oh, I know what you think they're supposed to be, and I'm gonna flip it. I'm gonna move it. I'm gonna take it away from you. You have no idea what this Sphinx is all about in this campaign.
I think I did that for the Rakshasa, which is the tiger fiend creatures in my Rod of Seven Parts game.
Yeah,
because they were built up that this evil Rakshasa is like living in a den of vampires and undead and all this weird stuff. And then when they actually find him, they found a coffin, and he like rises up from the coffin and goes like blah, and they're just like and he's like, oh, not scary enough, let me try again. And so the Rakshasa goes back down and like and they were like, this is not the Rakshasa I was expecting.
Yeah, this is not the one we thought we were supposed to have here.
That's
so
funny.
that might be a route I would go with it, because
cool.
you could really play on the iconicness of it when the players see it. So
well, that's awesome. That's Sphinx's.
Yeah,
that's really cool. Now, we occasionally play games on in our spare time.
Rumors.
And Lucian is currently going down a mage dungeon of madness. What's happening there, sir?
It's big.
Game? Yeah.
I think we're about to be done with level 4. We're fighting maybe a boss end level. I won't spoil it for any of you that are doing it. It feels like a tough fight in the moment. We went through that round. You ever have this while you're running a game or playing a game? You got a big fight. You're at the big fight. You're at the big kind of end of the thing. And all of us roll initiative, and initiative's not going great. Like all the rolls are kind of low, which is starting to tell you, wait a minute, something's not going to go well here. And then everybody takes their first turn, and everybody misses. We're powerful players at this point. We have powerful abilities, but they all miss in a row sometimes, and everything was missing. And so we got a whole round of we did nothing.
Nice.
So then you end your night and you're thinking, oh my God, we got to come back to this battle. If our dice do not turn around at this point, and it's not because we didn't have good ideas or we didn't have the right abilities. We had everything we wanted. If all that stuff would have hit, we'd have been in a much better position. But everything just didn't happen, or they made all their saves, or we missed all of our attacks or whatever. We're going into this fight when our opening round salvo has totally misfired. And now what's going to happen? And what's interesting about that is because as a dungeon master, you will typically understand the strength of your party that you're running campaigns for. And at some point you realize the good balance of what that is. And you know, I need to add a few more monsters to these guys because their paladins really overpower. And I gave them a magic item that was probably too good.
Right.
So I add a few things in here or there to make the module still feel challenging and stuff. And they're usually still good about it. But I'll add a few things in here. And then every now and then the dice betrays them. And you realize, oh no, they're still weak flesh bags that can be destroyed at any moment. You know, you're like, uh-oh, should I have not added those extra creatures in? Because they're all of a sudden are in trouble. You know, or it's like you go against something that can paralyze one or two of your players right off, and it hits, and they're not able to get out of it, make their saves for a round or two, so their normal, well-working machine that they are as a party just falls apart because all of a sudden... So that's what it feels like. That's what that... if you go back and you watch... I don't even know what episode it is at this point, but on Tuesday night's last Tuesday night game on Danimal's thing, it was like everything missed. We're fighting some really tough stuff. We can't afford to have things missing. We're pulling out the works to make this fight happen, and it could go bad if our dice don't turn around. So it'll be interesting. I think if we survive it, we'll probably get some downtime, go back up to the surface, and then tackle level 5. And there we go. We're 1/4 of the way through it. There's 20-ish or plus more levels. Maybe only 1/5 of the way through this whole adventure. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens when we're talking about this a year from now. Mark it on your calendars, and we've just made it to level. Hey guys, we're delving into level 12 now, or we're diving into the 13th level of the Dungeon of the Mad Mage. So it's interesting. It's also, I want to talk about it more, but I also don't want to spoil it. I think once I get into the much higher levels where people probably don't stick with the campaign that long, because nobody goes past like level 10 or 15 characters anyways. I think once we start there, I might start talking about it more.
Well,
but I'm leaving the early levels alone.
Let's have a conversation in the Discord about it, because I would like to know. And I don't necessarily think I'm going to play it, but like we could even say, guys, here's a spoiler section, because it's part of us talking about the games that we're playing is knowing, like, oh, I was surprised that this happened. You
know what I'll do too is I'll make a thing that pops up on the screen. Maybe me and Jordan can work on this, not necessarily in the next show or so, but when we start to get to that point, we'll put a little banner up that says spoilers for Dungeon of the Mad Mage. So you can mute if you want to, and you can just let that piece go for
and it's always at the end of 10 minutes. So
and then you can come back. We'll pull that banner down. So we'll have a banner if we're going to really spoil.
Okay. I like it.
Because I'd like to talk about some of this stuff. And just because then we can talk about the thought behind the creation of it, what you think would happen versus would you change it as a dungeon master? Would you leave it in? Those kinds of
conversations. Which I think that's the reason people want to listen to the show too.
For more than to know how awesome Con the fighter cleric is.
The fighter cleric.
But what about Jordan? That was my only game. I'm down to just a game at the moment, which is feeling relaxing. Probably as the summer picks up, I might pick up another game here or there. To see if I want to start playing or start running again. I'm feeling like I'm getting close to wanting to run again. Job is handled. But what about Jordan, who usually plays a few more games throughout the week?
No, I'm down to one game as well.
Oh, all right.
And we are... so my group decided to... we finished the Josh A game.
Yep,
and
Josh
we
A
decided
is
to try other RPGs.
He's the supervillain, if anybody missed that.
Oh, so cool. So... so right now we played Kids on Brooms, and that was a one-shot, and that was fun. And so last week we started a new game by Free League called Vaesen. And Vaesen is a Scandinavian Nordic horror game. And so we are kind of like supernatural investigators. And we are trying to investigate a mystery of... some missing persons that happened on, or suspicious deaths and things like that have happened on this island. So we did a kind of a session 0 and started the game. And I guess mostly I want to talk about the system. So I'm playing a young academic. And so when you build a character, you have young, middle-aged, or old. And then depending on that age, you have either more attribute points because you're young and you can like survive, or you're older and you have more skill points because you've lived longer in the world and you can do all this stuff. My character in Vaesen is a young academic that then you have certain things that you pick to decide if they are, or like how they can see these mythical magical creatures. And mine is that I was cursed by a mermaid to be old. So I look like a 50 or 60-year-old man, but in actuality, I'm probably like 17. And it's been a fun, like, just joke, and we're going along with it and stuff. But the whole system is D6s, and you roll a number of D6s that are based on your skill and the attribute tied to that skill. And anytime you roll a 6, that's a success. So depending on the number of successes, the DM will give you more information, less information, or you will succeed at whatever you're trying to do. And it was weird because I was playing it, and I'm like, this is so similar to a thing. Like, what is it similar to? And then last night, I'm trying to write an RPG using this open D6 system. And so I opened up Tales from the Loop because I'm like, oh, that's a D6 system. And I'm reading it, and I'm like, this is exactly like Vaesen. And then it dawned on me that it's Free League, and they're all using, like, that is the system they made, and now they're building RPGs around it. So it was really funny. But Tales from the Loop is great. And so this is another very similar, or mechanically similar. But instead of being like, I'm an 80s teen of this trope, you're... I'm an academic, or I'm a werewolf hunter, or I'm this.
Supernatural investigator of some sort. Yeah, very cool.
And
the book looks beautiful.
It's
the
really
Vaesen
beautiful.
Book looks really good.
The art is amazing. It's really great. It really invokes the feel of it, which is awesome. So with Vaesen, we're on our research. We're going to play again tonight. I'm excited. But the combat was kind of interesting, and I a lot of these games feel very story driven, so it was weird that there was combat. because I shouldn't say it was weird. I just wasn't expecting it. But our DM brought out, all of his dungeon forge, or I don't know. He's got the actual walls and stuff. So he built a little tavern. But the way combat works is like you can move from one cube to an adjacent cube. So it's not like I have 5 feet of movement. You literally can just kind of like reposition yourself as a movement action, but only so far. And then there were some other things, but I didn't have any weapons because I'm just this like academic. So I tried to protect the person that we're protecting, and we hid under a bench. It was prime role playing. It was really good. But yeah, it was really fun. So
there's always a weapon in a tavern.
I'll have to pick up something, or you can always use your fists. But I'm not that strong. I'm an old man who's trapped in a 17-year-old kid trapped in an old man.
I really that you mentioned it. I know we're close to our end here. That I'm really waiting for the game that has the in-depth combat mechanics of Dungeons and Dragons, but then has the story mechanics of the Tales from the Loop and the kids on bikes and the monster of the week. Those mechanics for the investigation and the talking with NPCs and the doing all the other stuff, the exploration. I'm waiting because it always seems like they lean heavy one way or the other. And I haven't seen the one that has the perfect mix of the two yet.
Yeah.
So if you guys think of the game that has a perfect mix of non-combat mechanics, dice mechanics, not just us talking is not a mechanic. There's mechanics to it. There's skills to it. Your character can do things. And then they also have a robust combat system that's not just simplified down. Let me know what that is because I'm looking for the perfect mix.
It's hard. Reading a lot of games recently because I've been trying to write this modular D6 game. But it's tough because, and I guess we'll just say this and then we'll probably close out. But like, if I am a GM that is focusing on combat, but we have this very robust system where you can do anything, what happens to the players that don't take the pro combat items?
Right.
They build their character around being very all of this other stuff. And let's take D&D, for example. You jump into D&D, but your wizard takes no attack spells. And everything's like charm
it's all about
and
investigation.
Stuff. And so in an actual fight, it's like, well, you're kind of worthless. You are really useful over here, but unfortunately, we're doing a lot of fighting. I want to push you towards Cypher and Numenera. Because I feel like that's kind of what you want. Like, it has a good mixture of, I want
to push you towards it.
All right. Been reading a lot of Numenera lately, too. It's been really good.
They do. I feel, though, Cypher did simplify combat a little more than I wanted. But it is very close to what I want. I want just a tiny bit more of tactical options than I get when I'm in Cypher. It's close though. It's not that far off, but I love all the investigative stuff and all the other stuff that comes with it. So you're absolutely right there for sure. But I feel like I'm not getting the Pathfinder feel, the Warhammer fantasy roleplay feel, the Dungeons and Dragons. Those are the combat heavy ones that I love. I want those rules, but I also want it in a nice, very narrative, robust system that D&D seems to lack. Pathfinder feels like it lacks. Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay feels like it lacks. Like, the scholar doesn't have a place in those games because we're constantly fighting cultists, and we need somebody who can punch cultists, But, yeah. So, it'd be interesting. I'm sure people have a lot of their ideas. They can put them out in our comments or Discord and let us know.
Yeah, Nathan recommends Genesis Fantasy Role-Playing System. So,
what? I've got a book for that called Terranoth, the Genesis system.
You should probably read it.
Got the Genesis system yet, so maybe I'll look at that, Nathan. Right. Thank you.
Thank you guys so much for liking, subscribing, sharing all of your sharing it with a friend. Just tweet about the show. It's awesome. We really appreciate it. And tell people, like-minded people who might enjoy it. We will be back next week with more D&D news and talking about all kinds of games that we're playing. So we'll see you then. Take care, everybody.
Bye.